All right, welcome back to the BlockVis YouTube channel. And today we want to look at the question of, okay, what if I had sold and later bought back my Bitcoin? I think that's a question that everybody already has asked themselves at one point in time. And so I just want to showcase a little bit what you can do with this and maybe answer this question. So let's start with, again, Bitcoin. Of course, you can choose any other coin. And then let's say the last 365 days, so the last year. And then the question is, okay, what amount? Of course, you want to maybe input your actual position size, but for this purpose, let's just take 10,000, or actually, let's just take 0.1 Bitcoin, of which you then sell 0.05. So you just sell half the position, right? So you bought a 0.1, or maybe you just bought half of it instead. That's the other scenario you're asking about. And what if you had used the rest of the money to then buy back in later, right? So it's the same if you had an existing position and sold half of it, or if you only kind of went in with half of the position. And so here you see that the blue line is the holding position. So if you were hodling versus, okay, this is the sell and buy back position in green. And you already notice here from the chart that during the tariff tantrum, the selling and buyback was outperforming. And of course, now during the recent crash, of course, while you would have underperformed during this outperformance during Q2 and Q3, so holding would have been better. Of course, this just explains, okay, the question of timing, right? If you can always time it perfectly, then then you could kind of take the better position depending on which one won, but nobody knows, right? So this is just a simulation. All right, so then let's see on the right. Okay, in the end, with the sell and buyback, you have $9,200. So you still lost money, but you only lost around $580 versus losing $1,160. So you almost cut your losses in half, right? So you only lost 6% instead of 12%. And you can also look at it the other way. So you were able to acquire more Bitcoin, so almost 0.01, so 7% more Bitcoin than if you had just held the zero point 0.1 Bitcoin all the way. And of course, you can also look at the other way and say, okay, what if I just wanted to get the 0.1 Bitcoin, right? That was my goal. How much would I have to have spent? So again, a year ago, you would have to spend $4,900, while now you only need $4,300. So you would have had $579 to spend on something else. For example, Ethereum or Solana, or just go on a nice weekend trip or something. All right, so this is the US dollar value, right? And then you can, of course, also look at it in the Bitcoin value. And here you see, okay, the 0.1, of course, is stable because you were hodling it, holding it. While if you sold and bought back, then it would be this line, right? And similarly here, you can see, okay, you could have had with perfect timing 0.107, 0.114. But of course, here now in the end, you have 0.107. So it really depends all on timing and, of course, on how much you sold, right? So let's say you sold 0.1, so you sold the whole thing. Then what is the case here? And then you can see that, of course, you would have even more, right? So, okay, I sold my whole position and bought back in. So that's then just a timing comparison. If you were thinking, okay, should I buy today or should I buy at some other point in time, you can review that decision and see which one was actually better. All right, let's take a look at some other time frame maybe. For example, in October, right? So let's say you sold before the October crash. So that was, I think, around October 9th. Let's take October 8th just to be sure. Okay, and here we already see, right, the big crash you would have avoided if you had sold everything. Of course, selling everything is maybe not always realistic. Let's go back to 0.1 Bitcoin. And yeah, you would have now $12,000, which was the value you would have needed in October to buy 0.1 Bitcoin, while now you only need 8,654 dollars to buy 0.1 Bitcoin. And of course, you can look at it the other way and see, okay, you could have bought a 0.14, right? So a massive increase, 40% more Bitcoin you could have bought. So this is a stark reminder of, yeah, maybe keeping some dry powder is not a bad idea. Yeah, I hope this simulator was helpful and hope to talk to you next time.